Let me explain. After weeks of speculating and a few teases from the Articulation series, the new Godzilla, Kong, SH MonsterArts figures have been revealed, and to say that they've subverted expectations is a little bit of an understatement. I wanted to talk it through a little bit because clearly I've had my fun with this reveal, but I think that others are taking it way too seriously. I've seen rage posts, I've seen like almost like eulogy posts, almost mourning the death of the MonsterArts line when I just don't think it's that serious. This is Bandai we're talking about. Honestly, I had the same reaction as Shinrobjiro on Twitter where I just laughed. I thought it was really funny. I saw someone else thinking that it was like a Photoshop, that it was made up, but it wasn't. It was real. Now I have some thoughts about what we're seeing here, and before I get too much into it, I do want to clarify that I am not a devout defender of SH MonsterArts. I've talked about MonsterArts like maybe 3 times on this channel, and every time I do, I've mentioned that I don't think they're that fun, and the ones that I have fall apart far too easily. I am merely trying to offer possible explanations for what we are seeing. I am not condemning it, I am not condoning it. And with that, let's get started. With the unveiling of Playmates' Godzilla Kong line, it's become pretty clear that there are potentially many releases that could be done in a highly articulated line like SH MonsterArts or like HIYA Toys. Many of those releases we might not even know about because we haven't seen the movie yet. This is assuming they get there, of course, unlike King of the Monsters, where pretty much none of the Titans and those new characters have gotten figure releases. But at this time, I think it's pretty safe to assume that across the board, across every toy line, we'll get at least figure representation of the 2 main antagonists of the movie. We'll get a Scar King to fight our Kong figure, and we'll get a Shimo to fight our Godzilla figure. Now, I think it goes without saying that characters other than the title monsters are always going to sell fewer units. I don't think that anybody watching this video is going to contest that idea or find it, controversial. But it's never been clear to us customers just how much better those characters sell, because for the businesses, those specific sales figures are considered trade secrets. In a new interview with Veebs, Brian Flynn from Super7 talks about the Thundercats license specifically, and he sort of walks us through why certain characters get reissued, why those molds get reused so often.
In the case of Thundercats, like, nobody that listens to this will like it, but it's like, look, any Lion-O is going to outsell any other character we make. I don't care who it is. 4 to 1.
Yeah.
4 to 1. Sells is Lion-O.
Yeah.
And so, when people are like, why are they giving us another Lion-O? It's like, well, I need to give another Lion-O, but I'm also making sure that we as collectors are making the stuff we want, and we get into these other characters. I mean, it's the same thing like when people talk about G.I. Joe and they're like, everybody loves everybody in G.I. Joe. And it's like, no. Snake Eyes, Cobra Commander, Destro.
Yeah.
Then Baroness, and then there's a chasm to everybody else. Especially when you're talking about taking stuff out to retail versus online. People don't want to put a whole lot of shelf space against the stuff underneath the chasm.
Right.
I just need more of this, because the toy collector buys this, but the non-toy collector buys this.
Right.
And that's what actually rings the catch register.
I'm self-conscious to the fact that I quite often will play clips from Super7 interviews, and whether you like their product or their value, whatever, I think it's fair to say that they are by far the most transparent company in the toy industry that tell customers about what it's actually like making these things. And I myself have learned so much from listening to Brian and Kyle talk about it. But anyway, let's get back to MonsterArts. We now have a rough idea of how much better those leading characters sell when compared to secondary or even niche characters, and why those niche characters getting made into figures relies on the sales of those headlining figures. And this goes a long way into explaining some of the trends that we see with companies like NECA, like Super7, like HIYA Toys, and like MonsterArts. Tamashii Nations might not have the confidence that a Scar King or a Shimo, or even recolors of those toys, can move enough units to justify their creation. And as a whole, across this new movie, Evolved Godzilla is going to need all new tooling, Shimo, all new tooling, Scar King, all new tooling, Kong, a new arm and maybe a new head. I can see why they might not have the confidence to make that investment, At least not without reissuing some older molds and trying to get some of that cash up front first. Now, I've seen some say that Bandai's status as one of the largest toy manufacturers in the world should mean that they have as much money as they need to make Godzilla figures. And to that I would say, rarely will you see organizations siphon funds from successful branches to underperforming branches. To use Hasbro as an example, the success of their Marvel, G.I. Joe, Transformers lines are not going to be compromised in order to save their Overwatch, their starting lineup, or their Indiana Jones lines. You ever see those nature documentaries where a crab gets like his claw injured and he just sort of pops it off and then continues on his way? Business is very similar in that sense. Hell, even in my context, working in higher education, I work as part of a unit that is in the larger institutional ecosystem, but the success or failure of another unit has no real impact on what I do, and my unit is not expected to pick up the slack of other units. So if Bandai wants to make their Godzilla line work, it's gonna have to be the Godzilla team that makes it work. And that just might mean reissuing a mold for the 6th time, for which many people have serious mold degradation concerns. Now, there is potentially another reason that we are seeing these figures as the opening for Tamashi's Godzilla Kong line, and that has to do with HIYA toys. I would put the tinfoil hat back on for this segment, but it's kind of a pain, so I'm just gonna need you to imagine that I'm wearing the tinfoil hat. Both of the theories in this video are stretches, but this one is like the Stretch Armstrong of the theories. This reason might have to do with a topic that I've covered before, and that's brand cannibalism. Godzilla Kong is the first time we are seeing MonsterArts and HIYA toys possess the license to make similar figures at the same time the movie is releasing. If Toho wants to do things in a way that maximizes potential profits, it makes almost no sense for them to let HIYA and MonsterArts release highly articulated figures of these new versions of Godzilla and Kong at the same time. If you do that, customers might feel compelled to buy only one or the other. But if you stagger those releases by 6 months or longer, then whichever product comes at a later time might feel new and fresh enough for customers to double dip. Reissuing these molds again might just be a way for Tamashi to sort of capitalize on the hype around the release of the movie, while also clearing a path for HIYA to release their product. And I have 2 potential reasons for why Tamashi might have gone ahead of HIYA. Now, we're getting into theories within theories. The first potential reason is that Tamashi might have actually felt the blowback that they received by releasing figures of sort of not final CGI models of the characters. Perhaps this time they've said, we're gonna wait for the final CGI files, thank you very much. And in doing so, they might be trying to reclaim some territory within the legendary space, because I think that's arguably the area where MonsterArts is floundering the most. Secondly, perhaps Toho just looked at the legacy of these 2 lines and decided that MonsterArts customers are more willing to wait for a MonsterArts release if HIYA comes first, than the HIYA customer is likely to wait for a HIYA version instead of just picking up the MonsterArts version and being done with it. Whatever reason it might be, I am still just baffled that Toho is allowing 2 companies making very similar products at the same time, and I'm very curious to see where we go from here. But remember, that's just a theory. Oh. Too soon. I do have some other thoughts on these releases and the MonsterArts line as a whole, and I'll be joining the Figure Mania show this coming weekend to join a roundtable and discuss this among other content creators. Whether you're able to join us live or watch it afterward, I hope you'll turn up because I think it'll be a fun time. If you've made it this far into the video, there's one last note that I'd like to end the video on. Last night, we crossed the 1,000 subscriber milestone and met the requirements for full monetization of this channel. This channel is not just me, it's everyone who shows up to watch the videos, like the videos, comment, and subscribe. And I am completely blown away by how quickly we've been able to hit this benchmark. My wife has cried over the kindness and the support that you've shown in the comment section of my videos. I usually tend to ramble when I'm recording stuff like this, and so if I may, I would like to keep it brief and say this. Thank you so much for your support, and I promise I will try to do my best. If you're interested in becoming a channel member and gaining early access to new videos, exclusive videos, live streams, polls, please consider joining as a channel member for less than $1 a month. Thank you to these fine individuals on screen for their continued support, as well as everyone else that has joined as a channel member. Your support is tremendously appreciated. Twitter and Discord links are in the description. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll talk to you again soon.